Hello, welcome to The Pipeline. Today is August, is it the 25th? 25th?
25th.
25th. August 25th. I am Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. You're watching The Pipeline. I'm joined today by Western Standard News editor Dave Naylor. Top of the morning to you, Dave.
Derek, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. We're better than Cory, who suffered a horrific chicken coop accident this week.
Yes, and I'm still suffering at this point.
What happened? This is the
I
first
put the
I heard
damn
about
birds
it.
to bed and slipped on the steps and bruised my ribs.
Someone guano or something?
No, it wasn't guano for a change, just water on the steps. But yeah, I'd hoped if I'm going to go down with a big injury, it's going to be something romantic or exciting, a car chase or a ski accident. But no, I was putting the friggin' chickens to bed. So I'm sitting awkwardly and more grumpy than usual. So
Well, if you were working
Be
from home, you
warned.
can claim that as WCB, right?
our chicken revenue doesn't really...
Were the chicken all laughing at you?
They were cooped up, thankfully, at that point, or we'd be down a couple chickens. I was pretty crabby.
We've got a great show today. Really hot topics here. Trudeau Liberal cabinet minister, Monsef, has called the Taliban, quote, our brothers. This is I suppose, new turn in Canada's diplomatic foreign policy, a global affairs strategy. We don't do foreign affairs anymore. That's too exclusionary. So we're going to be talking about Justin Trudeau, his ministers, and She-ria law. We're going to get into incredible that this has not made gotten any media coverage outside the Western Standard, and I think a few of the other independent alternative media out there. But one Liberal candidate who, for some reason, is running in Alberta has said Alberta needs to, quote, fit in or F off. I've been advised I should not say the proper word because YouTube and Facebook algorithms will not like it. So if Mark Zuckerberg was watching this, I said fit in or F off is what a Liberal cabinet minister says, a candidate says that Alberta needs to do. We're going to talk about that, how reflective that might be of where the Liberals are at with their view of Alberta right now, and why is it that the government-funded media just have not seen this newsworthy to cover. As well, we're going to be talking, speaking of Liberals playing around, this one did actually, to its credit, get some play in the mainstream media. Another Liberal cabinet minister, Chrystia Freeland, essentially the shadow prime minister, has said, tweeted a video that was heavily manipulated and has been flagged as manipulated, essentially lying about Aaron O'Toole, saying he's going to do all sorts of things with private health care. A video which I wish was true. Unfortunately, it is not true. Aaron O'Toole is not planning any good changes to healthcare that I'm aware of, just throwing more money at it. Unfortunately, that is his policy and is the truth. And so we're going to talk about this and what it means for a Liberal Party that so strongly favors internet censorship and regulation. We've also got big sports teams across the West introducing mandatory vaccination, not just for players and staff, but for people attending, people who have already bought season tickets, that kind of thing. We're gonna get into that as well. And I'll just tell you right now, I'll remind you later, we're planning a big election night special. I believe election night is September 20th?
It is.
September 20th. We're planning a big election night special. We're going to have some special guests in the studio here, and we'll be giving you live coverage from a Western perspective. Of course, we'll be looking at where the elections are actually decided, which is very much not here in the West. So let's get started. Actually, before we get started, we want to thank our Western Standard members for your continued generous support. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com and click on membership. You can try it free for 15 days. If you don't like it, you can cancel without paying a penny in that 15-day trial period. It's just $10 a month, and for $10 a month, you're supporting independent Western media that refuses to take the Trudeau government's media bailout. I think you'll enjoy it. We've got a great team working, our news team headed by Dave, and all kinds of great opinion columnists and contributors out right across Canada, focusing on the West right now, giving you the coverage that I think you want and need. So let's get started with Maryam Monsef, Liberal cabinet minister, apparently from Afghanistan. She says she's from Afghanistan. That's, I suppose, might also be flagged as manipulated information. But she was giving a press conference today. Apparently, you're still allowed to use government resources for press conferences during an election. But she was talking about our brothers, the Taliban. Dave, my jaw hit the floor as soon as I saw this. I said, "This is wackadoodle, bat-esque crazy stuff, even for a liberal." Why don't you tell us what happened?
Yeah, it certainly has sent shockwaves across the country, Derek. Minister Monsef was speaking with a group of 3 other cabinet ministers, addressing the media about what's happening on the ground in Afghanistan. Of course, it's a scene of unimaginable horror with the Taliban sweeping across the country in their take no prisoners, execute them all style. And she reached out to the Taliban, called them our brothers, and said we'd like you to give you to give safe passage to anybody who wants to get out of Afghanistan, safe passage to the airport. So you remember, Derek, as all Canadians remember, these brothers of hers killed 158 Canadian men, women, and civilians during the horrible war over there. And when she refers to them as her brothers, it has made a lot of people angry. Justin Trudeau today said, she's explained herself. A reporter actually on the conference call said, hey, you know what, do you want to take that comment back? Because it was pretty jarring. She declined. Erin O'Toole says it's unacceptable. And you remember Ms. Monsef, back in 2016, the Globe and Mail revealed that she wasn't born in Afghanistan at all. She was actually born in Iran. So, she's been in the spotlight before, and she's the minister representing Canadian women's issues. And we all know what the Taliban thinks of women.
She-ria law.
She-ria law. Child brides, forced complete burqa wearing. They treat their women as second-class citizens. So when you've got the Canadian minister responsible for the status of women saying they're our brothers, a lot of people are angry.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to circle back for a second. I gave a shout out to our fantastic columnists. I received a message from Josh Andrus. He believes we were talking about him. So Josh, duly noted as one of our columnists, he believes we're talking about. So coming back to this is, I can understand maybe a slip of the tongue. It appears to have been a prepared written remark.
She was reading off notes, yes.
Yeah, this was a prepared remark. You could say stupid things with a slip of the tongue. Calling the Taliban our brothers would be a very stupid slip of the tongue, but it is beyond comprehension that this could be in a written prepared statement, which have no doubt was vetted by the top officials reporting directly to the Prime Minister, communication staff. This stuff is vetted outside of election time. During an election time, it's vetted by an army of senior people working for the Prime Minister, working for her. I don't know anybody in the liberal world would have looked at this and said, I think it's a bad idea to call the Taliban brothers. It defies belief. Cory, she was given an opportunity to retract it. She has declined that, standing by it, doubling down on Taliban brothers. Do you think this is actually going to be a problem for the Liberal campaign, or do you think Liberal voters are more or less fine with this kind of thing?
I think it is going to be a problem. Their stubborn intractability. They've made a mess of this last week. Just about every pundit agrees. This was a terrible campaign kickoff. They've had error after error. Other things that we'll get on to, with the video, for example, they still haven't backed down on that. They've doubled down. And it's unusual to hear at a press conference something like that. I happened to walk into the office when Dave was listening to it and hear a reporter saying, excuse me, are you sure you don't want to walk that back? They were even giving her an out, like saying, did you...
trying to help her.
These are liberal media that love these guys. They're saying, hey, I can help you. If that had been a conservative, they already would have been running out the door to get this to press. But with the liberals, you really sure that's what you meant to say?
You want to add a little nuance? You want to try to explain this?
You had your chance. No, apparently the Taliban are brothers. And you can't soft sell these guys. They are fundamentalist, fanatical extremists. They are an evil group of people. We're not talking about Islam or people of the Muslim faith. This is a faction of it, a dangerous one, a very extreme one. And trying to appease them or soft sell or call them brothers is vulgar. I can't imagine how people whose family members were victims of that group feel when Canada's minister is up there referring to them as brothers and again doubling down on it. It's inexplicable.
Well, the Liberals have been giving non-answer answers when asked if they're going to recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan. I'll preface by saying you can recognize a foreign government as the, quote, legitimate government of a country without agreeing with it. We recognize Red China, even though they took power in a violent coup and civil war. We recognize them because they are there. So that doesn't necessarily mean you endorse a government just by recognizing it. Let's be fair about that. But they've been giving these non-answer answers and talking about the need for the Taliban to be good global citizens. And maybe Justin Trudeau and Monsef are succeeding. The Taliban has announced today that it is going to join the fight against global warming. The war on terror might be lost, but the war on global warming is got a powerful new ally. There's all sorts of things the Taliban can do. They can have carbon neutral burnings at the stake. Or they don't have to burn at the stake because that is emitting carbon. So they could stone. They do prefer stoning people to death it's a preferred method of
pollution-free stoning.
Yes, stones are, as long as you don't release the carbon in the stone.
They're carbon neutral, throwing a stone at an innocent victim.
And they will stop that victim from propelling carbon dioxide when the breathing ends.
Yeah, they're carbon negative. Actually,
these guys are saints.
Yeah, So there's all sorts of things the Taliban can do as good global citizens here.
It's bizarre, but them speaking up like that, though, it's funny because they are playing to the woke imbeciles that run a number of governments in the developed world. I mean, that's the kind of language people like Trudeau want to hear. That's the sort of thing that's the Prime Minister of New Zealand wants to hear. Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, come on, we're going to be carbon-friendly people. Yeah, we're still going to kill gay people and beat women and do all that stuff, but we're going to be carbon neutral.
I don't think that Liberals like that they do these things. They genuinely don't, but they do seem to have a moral relativist view of the world that these things that would be considered barbaric and even beyond medieval in the West, well, it's kind of the racism of low expectations. They look at them and say, well, they're different and we have to have these low expectations of them. So let's not judge them too harshly for murdering people for being gay or oppressing people for being women. But at least they're doing their part globally as global citizens. They're going to fight global warming because Afghanistan's such an industrial powerhouse.
Is the Taliban.com put gender pronouns in their description yet?
Well, that'll be interesting. Who's the head of the I don't even know the name of the head of the Taliban. But I wonder if he's got gender pronouns in his Twitter bio.
We can't presume,
Well, actually,
he might be non-binary.
That reminds me. Just yesterday, I never really look at LinkedIn, but I was on LinkedIn yesterday, and LinkedIn sent me a prompt and said, "Please enter your preferred pronouns." So I did.
What'd you put?
Dude and his dudeness.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, I demand that people respect these pronouns. I'd expect to be called by it. So anyone referring to me, that's my right. My right. Okay, well, let's move on. Speaking of rights, we're going to talk. Today's show is sponsored by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. The CCFR is a fantastic organization fighting for your right to own, use, purchase, and bear arms safely in Canada. They are out lobbying people in power. They are doing important advocacy work, getting public opinion on side for sane and rational firearms legislation in Canada. They're a great organization out there. I know I visited some of my family on the other end of the country, and I saw a CCFR bumper sticker on my uncle's truck. And they're making a difference, not just here in the West, but they've got a real cross-Canadian network, and definitely worth supporting.
If I could just interrupt your dudeness, our columnist Dave Naylor actually talked to the head of the CCRF today, and he's got a good column posted on westernstandardonline.com just about what they're doing and how sneaky the Trudeau Liberal gun grab is.
All right, your Daveness. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so check out firearmrights.ca and click why join to learn more about why you should become a member of the CCFR. Fantastic group, love them. We mention them every show. We love them so much.
We do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of maybe a less fantastic group, let's go back to the Liberal Party of Canada. They've got a candidate. Her name escapes me. I'm sure she has a strong chance of winning this suburban Calgary constituency. A Liberal candidate on the north side of Calgary running against Michelle Rempel, the Conservative incumbent. Comments unearthed from not very long ago. She wrote on her blog. Again, these is not slip of the tongue. This is written down and published for the world to see. Says Alberta needs to, quote, fit in or F off. I suppose that's not an exact quote. But as I said at the beginning of the show, I've been advised that Mark Zuckerberg does not like spicy language in the algorithms here. So Liberal candidate saying fit in or F off. Dave, why don't you tell us, do you remember who it was?
I do. It was a lady called Jessica Dale Walker. She was the acclaimed candidate in Calgary Nose Hill running against Michelle Rempel. Got no chance, little or no chance. But that chance just left town when it was unearthed in a May 2020 blog, and you hit the nail on the head. She wrote about Alberta always complaining, basically said, Canada's done a lot for Alberta. Alberta needs to fit in or F off.
She says Canada owes Alberta nothing. I think that was like the exact quote.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can imagine, that went down like a lead balloon throughout most of Alberta. And she's standing by it.
She hasn't apologized.
As Cory mentioned, the Liberals tend to double down and pretend they haven't made a mistake. But there was no getting around this. Rempel Gardner put out a copy of the blog, and her outrage and the outrage of many other people continues. So I wish Miss Walker good luck when she's door knocking in Calgary Nose Hill, but she may get that F off greeting at a few doors, I think.
Yeah. Cory, should Alberta fit in or F off?
Oh, we can F off. I'm more than happy to.
I'm very happy.
I was ready to sometime.
I, for one, choose F off.
Yes. People have invited me to do it many, many times. So I'd be, for once, happy to oblige.
Yeah. I suppose I have an idea of what the answer might be, but the mainstream government-funded media did not cover this issue one bit. I did a Google search around, so maybe someone covered it and I didn't see it. But I didn't see a single government-funded news outlet or media outlet cover this issue at all. It was us and some of the other independent alternative media out there kind of found on the right side of things. Do you think this, did we miss the mark? Is this not newsworthy?
No, it's newsworthy as far as it should be. I mean, it's kind of mixed, I guess. I don't like seeing the cancel mob swarming and destroying people over inadvertent comments. Though, I guess if you're not going to get the coverage of the comment, you can get away with it. So she just locked down her Twitter and ran away and in hopes that people will forget it. But, I mean, you've got to, and we say this so often when it comes to different coverage of different parties or political stripes. If it had been, say, a fringe conservative candidate in Toronto Danforth who said something similar to the people of downtown Toronto, it would have been done. It would have been finished. It would have been the cover of the Globe, the CBC. They all would have been
said about Quebec.
all over it, and they oh yeah, there we go.
Speak English.
Even better.
Like
yeah,
that.
It would have been finished, and the media would have been merciless until this person was gone. And in this case, they don't even report upon it. I mean, again, it wasn't an earth-shattering thing that should hit from coast to coast, but it's a great demonstration of the incredible leaning of the established media in Canada and the double standard they hold candidates to in this country.
Well, we had a staff meeting about an hour before we started the show today. I've given orders. We are not done with this story. We are not done. We're going to keep banging at this story until someone in the government-funded media bloody reports it. We're not letting go of it. I think it's important that people running for office from the governing party of Canada would think that about Alberta. It certainly didn't surprise me. We all, I think, suspect that that's what liberals think of Alberta.
Self-loathing liberals. I mean, you see it sneaking out in Inchy quite often too when he talks about Western culture or pickup trucks. But
yeah,
as I wrongly predicted, he's not running for member of parliament, so he can get away with those now.
I think it might be a Senate seat.
This lady, on the other hand, better improve her door.
Well, why
demeanor.
do you run for? Why would a Liberal run to be an MP in Alberta? So you can get appointed senator.
Yeah.
That's a pretty.
Yeah, it used to be the provincial Liberal Party was the route to go. Grant Mitchell got there and some others, but they drove that so deeply into the ground. I mean, Khan just obliterated it. So now they have to run for the federal ones if they're going to try.
Well, it was, I think it began well before Khan. I'd go back to...
Nancy Macbeth, I think, initially was the beginning of the end for them, but it was a slow decline. Khan was the final.
Yeah. Well, generally, if you want to get appointed a judge, like a federal court, a bench judge, or a senator, you just ran as a Liberal candidate, or you were the provincial Liberal leader. It's kind of like doing your tour of duty. You know, it's like you went to Nam so that you could get a nice appointment to Hawaii or something.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take a swipe at Khan because I don't like the guy.
He's a less than pleasant individual. I've known some, like Raj Sherman was a nice guy. I got along with Raj great, but yeah, the Khan guy is...
Yeah, he even took shots at the sandwiches my wife made in her coffee shop in Prentice. That's how low our political battles got.
Well, I went after your sandwiches.
My wife's sandwiches.
Unacceptable.
Uncalled for.
What a sumbitch. I broke it there.
Nice.
Okay. We're going to move on here, but today's show is also sponsored by Resistance Coffee. You know what? I should always just hand it straight to Cory. Cory's a Resistance coffee drinker.
I guzzle that stuff. It's great. Yeah, Jane ordered it up. Resistance Coffee. I mean, these guys, they're the counter woke. You know, they're one of the companies that have formed to push back against all those other companies where you go and make a purchase in good faith, thinking you're just buying a product or a service, and then you find out later that part of your money went to some wretched woke cause that you wouldn't want to give a nickel to, much less part of your purchase. Resistance Coffee, none of that. They're pushing back. They'll take 10% of your purchase. They're giving it to groups that stand up for your individual rights, like the JCCF and some of the others. So
CCFR, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm not sure. Yeah, so if you go to their site, resistancecoffee.com, though, they do list all the areas where they will give 10% of your purchase to. They got all those great coffee names, you know, Liberal Tears. I like the dark roast the most. It's they call it black gold. But the Liberal Tears, just in just the sense of it, just sounds so much better, and that's their medium roast. So I drink it just to feel better about myself. But it is good coffee. You know, you don't have to gag it down. For the sake of making.
That should be a sweet coffee, Liberal Tears.
Yeah, in some senses, it's good stuff. They deliver it to your door. You get 10% off on your first order if you put the Western Standard, all one word, into the promo code when you order it too. So I mean, 10% of your purchase goes to good individual rights causes. 10% of it comes off of your first purchase, and you end up with some good coffee, with some good conversation stuff for when families coming over for them.
And the other 90% goes to another good cause, capitalism.
Yes, and then they sponsor us. It's just the full closed circle of win.
Beautiful.
So give these guys, a look. It's good stuff. It's good coffee. I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
Okay. Well, today is really the beat up Liberals Day. Last week we beat up on the NDP and the Tories over their platforms. The Liberals, to my knowledge, haven't released a platform yet. It's hard to have a platform running on a third term of government. It's like, what are you going to do that's different other than more? But I suppose that's a problem. One of the problems Harper had when he was running for re-election in 2015. His platform looked pretty bland to me. We've got Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. She gave a real nutty video. Did you see this video?
Oh, that was crazy.
Oh, she was just unhinged. She's in Toronto, looks like, dressed for a nice warm summer day. That's fine, but she was standing in front of her office. I think there was helium attached to her hands because they were just out and gesticulating very strongly about just how she had a cold sweat thinking about what happened if she wasn't in power. If she wasn't in power, she had cold sweats thinking about how terrible it would be if she was not in charge. And right-wing conservative libertarians like Erin O'Toole were in charge, and their nefarious plans to privatize healthcare. And she talked about the video that she's tweeted out about this. It was just the facts she gave, right?
It was, but fortunately, fact checkers checked it and determined it was fake news. Even Twitter put up a manipulated video warning on it. This all started with an interview that Erin O'Toole gave about healthcare, and he said he was all for universal healthcare, great stuff. But he was going to let the provinces, if they can find innovative ways to cut waiting lists by farming out some minor surgical procedures to the private sector, he would be all for that. So Freeland turned that around.
Which we already do.
Which we already
especially
do.
in Quebec, happens all the time.
Yeah, I believe the Prime Minister himself got vaccinated at a private clinic.
Tommy Doug must be rolling in his grave.
I know. So Freeland put out this video, completely editing out anything that O'Toole said about the universal system, just leaving in that thing about if we can find innovative ways to do it, let's do it, and put it out there, as you said, like the world was coming to an end. Streets would be filled with the dead and the dying because hospitals would be overrun.
Men in the streets with guns, remember that?
Oh, yes, all too well.
It really was a horrible manipulation of the truth. And it's ironic because if you remember the last year or so, Derek, His Dudeness, the Liberals have been trying their hardest to bring in a bill that would censor the internet, would allow them to decide what's news and what's not news. So I think they've shown their true colors if they think that what Freeland put out was real news, because even even Twitter said no, fake news.
So she's doubled down. They've said, we're standing by this, even though it's been flagged as fake news. They've doubled down, standing by on brother Taliban. They're standing by their candidate, not apologizing whatsoever on their candidate saying Alberta must fit in or F off. It looks like they're not making any allowance for error, that their people are fallible. But it looks to me like in the last week, a lot can change. The Liberals still are leading or tied in most polls, but they've squandered a lot of that lead in the polls, and it looks to me like the wheels are, they might not be off, but they are definitely headed in a downwards direction. It does not look like momentum is on their side.
We're starting to smell some desperation. And just to add to that background, though, for people who want to watch that video, because that was gross what they did with it. We do have it on the westernstandardonline.com. We posted both videos, so you can see the clip she posted on Twitter was 36 seconds. The real original was 2.5 minutes. And I mean, there were some social media fart catchers saying, oh no, it's just shortening a video. No, there's like 3 jump cuts. You could take somebody's speech and sure, the original content's there, but if you slice and dice it into 30 seconds, you can make it say nearly anything. It was unforgivable and very deceptive. This bizarre, I mean, they seem incapable of it, but at a point like this, a little humility, I think, would go a long ways. If anything puts people off, it is a true sense of arrogance coming from them. I mean, again, speaking of Nenshi, that's part of what it was kind of bringing his support down over the years, with people were just tiring of the arrogance. I mean, they don't have to come down and flagellate, but at least delete the tweet. I mean, at the very minimum of something you're going to do, they won't back off. And it's, I think, great. I mean, if they want to dig their own hole, let them go. But we're smelling desperation. They didn't expect things to go this badly. They've already dropped the abortion card. They've already pulled stunts like this, which again are signs of
healthcare card, the abortion card. What else have they? What other cards? They played a lot of cards real quickly
in the first week, and it's not working for them. And they seem to be getting more desperate. And I've been surprised because I mean, love or hate the Liberals, they're usually actually a well-organized, powerful campaigning machine. I mean, they've got some very, very bright people in the back rooms, anyways. Even if their person in the front's a bit of a twit, who manage these things and it just doesn't seem to be coming together right now.
And the polls are certainly showing that Canadians think the wheels have fallen off. The last couple this week has shown them in a dead heat, basically a statistical tie, which if you remember just a few short months ago, the Liberals had a comfortable lead. I think any talk of a Liberal majority is now out the window. And apparently the Tories are ahead in the GTA even. That shows you how far.
I'm going to need a few more polls to reconfirm that before I believe it. But.
They've got to do something to right the ship,
well,
or it'll get to a point where it can't be salvaged.
And one of the things that I think was their bigger fear too is Singh has actually been pretty effective. And I got to say, the way they've been hitting on the commercials with the NDP, as we kind of said earlier, Trudeau's had 6 years in there. When you can't re-promise stuff, forever. Eventually, you've actually acted on it. And they list a number of things that Trudeau promised. Well, he promised it, but he didn't do it. He promised it, but he didn't. Why should you believe him this time? And people are saying, well, why should I?
Has the statute of limitations run out yet on blaming Stephen Harper?
Well,
That's what he's done for the first 5 years. Everything was Stephen Harper's fault.
That's true.
Can he now still say that? He's had all those years in power. He's got nobody to blame but himself.
I don't think there's any copyright or statute of limitations on that. I think they'll ride that as long as Trudeau's around.
I don't think Canadians are buying it anymore.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Speaking of buying, there's been a raft of sports teams across Canada and here in the West that are introducing mandatory vaccinations, not just for players and not just for employees in the stadiums, but even for people attending these games. I think we had the story first. It just popped into my inbox. I hold season tickets for the Calgary Stampeders. Big football fan. I love the Stamps. Actually had a great game last week. Finally got our first one of the season. It was a great game. But apparently you are now required to provide a vaccine passport at the door. That shouldn't pose a technical problem for any of the three of us. We're vaccinated. I mean, I know some viewers are going to disagree, but I think vaccination is great. You should do it. Smart thing to do. But it's your choice to do it. If you don't want to do it, that is your own choice. And I think it's the wrong one. But you, in a free country, you have the right to make bad choices. And but you know the Calgary Sports Group. So that's Stamps, that's Flames. We've had it in Edmonton as well. So I gave him a call back as I was driving home that day. I said I want a refund for the outstanding amount of my season tickets. That's not in the terms and conditions that I signed up for. Again, I should have no problem, but I'm not allowed to. We were just signing up. We were going through the paperwork just a day or two ago, getting a benefits plan here at the Western Standard for employees, and the insurance companies are not allowed to ask you for your medical records. It's private information, and so it seems strange to me that the Stampeders or the Flames or the Oilers or the misspelled Elks are allowed to ask for that kind of private information. So Dave, why don't you tell us? I suppose I've kind of blabbed a bit here, but why don't you tell us about it?
You covered it well, Derek. Sorry, you're doing this. Started with the Winnipeg Jets a couple of weeks ago. Announced this week, Stamps, Hitmen, Flames, Oilers. Anybody going into the Rogers Centre, anybody going into the Saddle Dome for concerts or anything like that, will have to show proof of vaccinations. And I think what's happened here is the sports teams have had to do it because the government hasn't. BC this week brought in mandatory vaccine cards that you're going to have to carry to get anywhere really in the province, movies, dinners. Manitoba done the same thing. Quebec has done the same thing. But Premier Kenney has steadfastly said he wasn't going to do that in Alberta. So rightly or wrongly, the teams have done it themselves. And with, basically, I'm sure saying, thanks for nothing, province. If you'd have done it, we wouldn't have had to. But if you want to go see a Flames game, you better be double jabbed, and you better have the paperwork to prove it. And there has been some social media chatter about a few dozen people canceling their season tickets. The Flames have so far refused to call me back. The Stamps did and basically said everything's being handled out of the Saddle Dome. So what kind of effect this will have on sales remains to be seen, but I'm sure some fans won't be happy.
Cory, you're pro-vax like me. You've got the jab. You're happy to do it. But do you think? This isn't the government doing it. I think there is a distinction between government doing it and private. Because I actually do believe in the legalized right to discriminate, but it only seems to go in one way.
Yeah, it's distressing. As they're private enterprises, but we're seeing a societal swarming on the unvaccinated now, and they're being turned into pariahs, and it's divisive. I'm getting very concerned on the tone and the attitude. We've got to think harder on the people who have chosen not to get vaccinated. Most people who were supportive of it, who were comfortable with it, have already done so. We're talking about a remainder who, people use the term vaccine hesitant. That's a small percentage. The ones who are left, maybe 20%. These are very vehemently anti-vaccination people. And if they truly feel that they're going to turn into a lizard person, or that their DNA is going to be modified, or they're going to go magnetic, or all the other baloney that's going around. So yeah, I know, we'll get all the messages and texts from me calling it baloney. But either way, if you really do feel that way, you really do believe that, you're not going to put that in you for anything. Nothing is going to compel you to do that. So we have to accept and work with figuring out how to work when we've got as much as 20% of our society unvaccinated, and pressuring and cornering and unemploying and doing things like that. I don't think this is going to end well.
I think it's actually going to hurt, because there'll be some people, like there's a spectrum of vaccine hesitancy to those who believe it is just, a conspiracy and it's going to sterilize you or something, to people who have questions about it, which might be reasonable, fair questions, and to people who are like, okay with vaccination, but just want to kind of see how it plays out first. The hardcore people who believe that, this is Bill Gates controlling your mind or something, they're never going to get vaccinated. But I think there's still a fair number there in that 20% that are not vaccinated who are legitimately vaccine hesitant. They're just not doing it yet. And I think these kinds of measures are going to make them less likely to do it. I look at this and I am seeing totalitarianism. Like, I am seeing a dangerous coercion from significant corporate international powers and from government, the state, trying to force people to do something. And that makes me half wish I hadn't got the job, even though I think vaccination was the right thing for me to do. I don't want to do it because they're forcing me to do it. I wanted to make a choice, not be forced to do something.
And that says, well, what I'm talking about. It's just I don't like this pressuring and this coercion and this tone, even if it's a minority of people that I don't agree with. That's what I respect as a libertarian, as others, is I can live with a minority I don't agree with. You do your thing, I do mine. And this again, it's a cultural swarm that's happening. It's unprecedented and it's distressing. I don't feel comfortable with where that's going. I'd still get vaccinated because I think it's the right thing. But I've talked about that even when we talk about doing the census when it was illegal. I was with an ex at one time, when they were really cracking down on that, and I refused to do the census. Absolutely refused. She ended up filling it out on my behalf when I wasn't home. I was so ticked off. But you know what? If they'd have just come and asked, if it wasn't legally mandated,
I'd have no problem.
I would have filled it out. But the second you put a gun to my head, my heels dig in.
Yeah.
And, I get ticked off. And that's what we're trying with these vaccines. And as you said, those who are still hesitant, now you're putting the gun to their head. You're not moving them from hesitant to pro. You are scaring them into the full anti-vax.
Well, yeah, because if you are believing that there might be some kind of nefarious purposes behind this, you're actually seeing government acting nefariously.
They're looking that way,
This is going to confirm conspiracy theories for some people, or even people who aren't prone to conspiracy theories. They're going to look at this and say, you know what? I don't like to be forced to do it, so like Cory, I'm not going to fill out the census.
Well, look at the size of McMahon Stadium, and it's outdoors, why don't we have an unvaccinated section then? We could do sections. There used to be smoking and non-smoking. We can have farting and non-farting. You can have all sorts of sections where people can more comfortably enjoy each other's company.
Do you prefer fart or no fart?
Oh, absolutely fart. It's an art form. I've got to share that. That's what crowded situations are for.
We've reached a new low.
That's we're a classy show. We try to keep it classy.
I got
here.
references on that.
I'll take it up with Jane.
She's not supposed.
Well, so actually, this raises the other point. We've been to some of these games. Nobody's wearing masks. There's one guy a couple seats down who wears a mask, and no one else is. It puts a lie to the what these the forced maskers have been telling themselves and telling everyone else is the mask is not for me. It's for you to protect you. Well, how is that one guy surrounded by 10,000 people not wearing a mask? He must think, like, wow, these 10,000 people must want me to die. No, it's clearly for people with their own neurosis who are paranoid about this stuff. And it's also it's confusing me that I'm pro-vax, but I'm not pro-mandatory vax. And so these extreme vaxxers, let's call them, if there's a spectrum here, and if I'm sort of in the middle, and you're in the middle, I think you are too, these extreme vaxxers out here, I don't think they actually believe the vaccines work. The vaccines are to protect you. If you're vaccinated, you're good. You're not going to die. You're quite unlikely to even contract COVID, and you are extraordinarily unlikely to fall victim to death from COVID. Yet you insist that we need to use the power of the state to force people at nearly gunpoint to get vaccinated. Well, do you believe they work or do you believe they don't? If you believe vaccines work, then the people who are not getting vaccinated, as far as you control, it's Darwinian population control. They are going to make poor decisions, and if it hurts them, well, that was their own choice. They're not hurting anyone else by not getting vaccinated.
They'll gain the herd immunity the old-fashioned way and putting themselves at a higher risk in doing it. The only other area, and that's a much bigger discussion for another show, though, is people say, well, they could overcrowd our healthcare system. But we've been warned about that for 17 months. It hasn't happened yet. No. But even if they did, then maybe it's time we re-examine our entire healthcare system so we can move on to private options and personal responsibility.
Why don't we
but
let
that's
the unvaccinated, we give the
chat.
Unvaccinated the right to purchase private healthcare?
Yeah.
Let's just see how that works.
Well, then I wouldn't get vaccinated.
I would have to, well, I would lie and say I'm not vaccinated.
Yeah,
You're
or
like, let me in.
something,
I did see a story today. I think a U.S. health company in the States is adding a $200 premium per month for anybody who's not vaccinated.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just a reminder, we are going to be having an election night special, September 20th. We're going to have more details on that coming for you soon, but stay tuned, book it in your calendar, election night. We're going to have a live election coverage. We're going to be camped out here in the Western Standard Studio in downtown Calgary, but we're going to have correspondents reporting live from British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, maybe even the center of the universe in Ontario. We'll see. It's going to be great. We promise it's going to be good, but we're going to have more details for you soon. Just a reminder, if you're already a member of the Western Standard, thank you very much for your support. But if you're not yet a member, go to westernstandardonline.com and click on membership. You can try it free for 15 days. See if you like what you're getting. If you do, it's only $10 a month to support independent, Western, bailout-free media that I think you're going to like. We've got a great team here doing great work, and I think they're worth supporting. I don't know about me and these guys, but there's a lot of others that you might like, even if you don't like us. So thank you very much, Cory, his Daveness, his Morganness. And for me, his dudeness. Thank you very much. God bless.